All right, everybody, good late afternoon now. We're going to wrap up the backups here. Going to take a look at some more quarterbacks. I'm not going to talk about every single one out there. I'm just going to try to list some of the highlights. There are going to be a few more backup quarterbacks to consider, but at a certain point, it's like, what are we doing here? I don't need to spend all day talking about every single quarterback that's going to sign with a team in the offseason. Some of them might not, by the way. Some of them might just float out there, but yeah, let's go ahead and take a look. Again, we're in the backup tier now, and we're kind of at the back end of the backup tier, if you get my drift here. Joshua Dobbs would be somebody that I would expect to get a little something this offseason. Just turned 30. He's not that far removed from a pretty okay season in 2023 when he played decently well. Actually got traded midseason to the Vikings to try to save their season after Cousins got hurt and played okay. He wasn't able to save their season, but he did play passably well. Didn't really play much last year, so we don't really have anything to go on other than 2023. PFF thought he was okay, not starting caliber, but capable backup, maybe even a high-end backup based only on this evidence. And there's no market value page, but I'm going to be kind of in that 1 year, 2.5 million range, I think. Got 2.25 from the Niners, right? 2.2 and a quarter. So maybe it'll go down because he didn't really play much in 2024. Maybe it'll be like 1 year, 2 million. But it's going to be somewhere around there. And look, he's played passable football when given an opportunity. Just doesn't get a lot of those. Case Keenum, long-time NFL backup quarterback. Was a starter there for a little bit. Did start a good amount for the Vikings and Broncos. We're coming up on, 6, 7 years removed from that, though. And he firmly settled into like the high-end backup role. And he has not really played meaningful football since 2019 when he was the part-time starter on the, I guess then they were still the Redskins, but maybe they were the football team. I can't remember. But he started 4 games since then and has not had a season where he's thrown more than 75 passes. So there's really not much to look at because I don't want to go back and look at when he was 31 years old, when he's now going to be 37, right? That doesn't make sense. So moving past that consideration, the money, 1 year, 2.9 million. I don't think I'm going to do this for a guy who's about to turn 37 and hasn't played meaningful football in 4 years, right? Like, we don't have a sample size big enough for the last 4 years to know if this guy can still play. So I would pass on this one. To me, Case Keenum is either a veteran minimum guy or a guy who just needs to retire. One of the two. Jarrett Stidham, another low-end backup guy, was drafted, has played a little bit of football over the last couple of years for the Raiders and Broncos. There's not a ton to say here. He was Wilson's backup in 2023. I think, was that David Carr? I think that was Derek Carr's backup in 2022 and did get to play a little bit at both spots, but didn't do a ton, right? Didn't really do much. PFF grade pretty poor in 2023, 55.5 for a quarterback that's very bad. And it was a little bit better in 2022 with the Raiders, but still just kind of a middle of the road at best backup quarterback. And since then, he hasn't really played much, so there's not a lot to go on. Botrack does have market value for him at 1 year, 2.6 million. Probably because he's theoretically in his prime, but I don't know if that really matters for a guy like this. So, not super excited there. Andy Dalton still lingering as the du jour backup veteran that has seen everything, that has had great NFL success, and has shown he can still do a thing or two. Going to turn 38 in October next year, so getting up there. But as recently as last season, he showed he could still play decent football. Passable backup quarterback football. And he was a 14-game starter for the Saints in 2022 and actually played quite respectable football. So Dalton still kicking, not leaving this league on his feet. They're going to have to throw him out. Doesn't want to leave. He loves football. PFF last year in the bit that he did play, decent, backup quarterback stuff, workable. He had one really good game and then kind of slipped after that, but He did overall play decently on a not good team. And last time he was a starter, a full starter with New Orleans, 14-game starter, he was ranked as one of the best quarterbacks in football by Pro Football Focus. And I'm not saying that he actually was all that good, but I think you look at the box score numbers, you look at the PFF grade, you look at the actual games from 2022, he was still good. He was still slinging it. He can play. So he's still got something to give. Definitely not going crazy for a guy who's going to turn 38 in October. 1 year, 2.5 million. I think that's about right. I think they got it about on the nose. It wouldn't shock me if he got a little bit more. I don't think I think his days of getting like 10 million are long over, but I could see him getting like 4 million. Depends on the state of the market. There aren't a lot of great quarterbacks available, so somebody like Andy Dalton might actually have some appeal. Trey Lance, another really tricky one because he's never really gotten a chance to play. We know all about Trey Lance, except for how he plays football, because he never gets to play football. He has 143 career pass attempts, never thrown more than 75 in one season. He's never had more than 2 starts in one season. Who knows? None of this stuff is enough to derive meaningful data from. Now, you might say the fact that he's not getting on the field is evidence enough, but look at who he's behind. He's behind Dak Prescott right after he signs the biggest contract in NFL history. He's behind Brock Purdy when Brock Purdy seizes and rips the job away from everybody else. So it's been a tough go for him. So Trey Lance, there's a lot of talent here. Got the arm, he's got the mobility, he's got the size. But what are we doing here? 2.1 million for 1 year. I mean, you can't go wrong. And you're not going to be disappointed with the talent. If nothing else, he'll be good for you in practice, right? He'll be a good practice quarterback. You can practice against him and get ready for the Lamars of the world because he's got that skill set. But are you getting a good quarterback? Hasn't even turned 25 yet. Don't completely count him out. Tyler Huntley would be another good backup. Most recently played a little bit for the Dolphins last year. Formerly a Raven, made the Pro Bowl 1 year as a Raven. He shouldn't have, but he did. So, salute. Good for him. But he's one of those quarterbacks with not much of an arm, but he does have lively legs, and those lively legs allow him to play passable football. So Tyler Huntley, in the little bit that he played in 2024, graded out okay, workable backup stuff. And when he made the Pro Bowl, it was actually worse. 2022, he did help the Ravens eke it out to the playoffs without Lamar, but not you wouldn't say he played great. He had some fun moments, did some highlight reel stuff, but he's a backup. That's all he ever was, and that's all he'll ever be. 1 year, 2 million for him. Sure. If you need a quarterback like this, if you want a mobile, dual threat quarterback with a weak arm, sure. Just turned 27, by the way. So, should be in his prime. Carson Wentz, another interesting one. Another one of these veterans. Just turned 32 in December. So, age is starting to be a thing with him, but it's complicated, right? This one is tough to pull apart. I loved Carson Wentz when he was young. Phenomenal athlete, great arm, did crazy stuff to get away from sacks, has the big size, has the mobility. He brought a lot of things to the table that I really liked. The air yards he was showcasing in 2017, the year he almost won MVP. Impressive stuff. But the athleticism is gone. Hasn't played meaningful football since 2022. And we've had plenty of evidence that he doesn't have the sauce anymore. His fundamentals were weak to begin with. Carson Wentz never really had great fundamentals. He never had over-the-top accuracy. He never had the elite ability to be consistent from game to game, play to play. But he could do freakish athletic stuff that made up for it. Now he doesn't. So Carson Wentz, go back to 2022, the last time he was a starter, not very good. 60.6 grade, 50th out of quarterbacks, and he got benched in Washington. So yeah, there's only so much you can say here at this point. He is a pure backup at this point. 1 year, 1.9 million, says Spotrack. I think that's probably about right, and I don't know if that's going to get him out of bed. This is a guy who's made over $100 million in the NFL, but I wouldn't give him more than this. There's just, in the absence of the athleticism, there's only shoddy fundamentals. Final guy we're going to look at is Taylor Heinicke, last backup quarterback candidate. This guy's been around for a little bit, most recently with the Chargers. Spent a year with the Falcons where he actually played a decent amount. Was formerly with Washington. Actually looked like he was going to be something there for a little bit and then didn't pan out. So Taylor Heinicke, bobbing around now as a backup. 4 PFF grade in 2023. Last time he played significant football. So definitely not what you want to see. And even worse the year before. It's been rough since he left Washington, man. Guy left Washington. It hasn't been the same since. Actually, I think that, no, the last year in Washington, they thought he was awful. I forgot to pull up the Spotrack page for him, so let me pull that up now. 1 year, 1.3 million. I mean, it's basically vet min. He is 32 years old, about to be. So, sure. But I want something a little more fun than this. Heinicke doesn't even have a good arm. He's got a weak arm. Got a noodle. So I'd rather do something a little more fun than this, but those are some options. Those are your backups. Let me know what you guys think. All these guys should be very cheap, except maybe Andy Dalton. You're talking $2 million a year or less, mostly. Maybe up to like 2.5. Let me know what you think. See you guys later. Go Hawks.